Michael Jordan stepped out of his luxury car and froze. Standing at the traffic light was a homeless man holding a cardboard sign. But when their eyes met, Jordan's heart dropped, because this wasn't a stranger. It was the boy who once shared his childhood dreams, his sneakers, and his future. What Michael did the very next day shocked everyone, and changed a life forever. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Now, let's dive into what really happened, and no one, absolutely no one, could have imagined what Michael Jordan was about to witness that afternoon. Not the fans who saw him as a legend. Not the media that followed his every move. And not even Michael Jordan himself. It was a calm, ordinary afternoon in Chicago. The city buzzed quietly under soft daylight as Michael Jordan, the world's most celebrated basketball icon, sat in the back seat of his car after attending a charity meeting. His mind was relaxed, his thoughts elsewhere, when suddenly something outside the window caught his attention, something that felt out of place. "Slow down," Michael said to his driver as they approached a traffic light. On the sidewalk stood a man holding a worn-out cardboard sign. The words written in shaky letters read, "Just need food. God bless." The man looked exhausted. His shoulders were slumped, his clothes faded and torn, clearly worn by years of hardship. His face was thin, marked with deep lines that spoke of pain, loss, and survival. But what stopped Michael's breath wasn't the sign, or even the man's condition. It was his eyes. Michael leaned forward, his heart suddenly racing. Those eyes carried something familiar, something from a long-forgotten chapter of his life. In a flash, memories flooded his mind. Dusty neighborhood basketball courts, borrowed sneakers, scraped knees, and late-night conversations about dreams that felt bigger than the world itself. "Stop the car," Michael said, his voice low but firm. As he stepped out onto the sidewalk, the man slowly lifted his head. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, the noise of the city seemed to disappear. "Marcus," Michael whispered, barely believing the name leaving his lips. The man froze. His eyes widened, his hands began to tremble. "Mike," he replied softly, his voice breaking. This wasn't just a homeless stranger standing at a traffic light. This was Marcus Brown, Michael Jordan's childhood best friend, the boy who once believed they would rise together and conquer the world. Michael and Marcus were once inseparable. They grew up on the same streets, played on the same cracked basketball court, and shared the same impossible dreams. Every afternoon, after school, they raced to the court with a worn-out ball, playing until the sun disappeared behind the buildings. In their minds, the cheering of an imaginary crowd followed every shot they made. Marcus had natural talent. His moves were smooth, his shots confident. Some people in the neighborhood even believed Marcus was better than Michael. But talent alone isn't always enough, because life doesn't treat everyone equally. Everything changed when they were teenagers. Marcus's father passed away suddenly, leaving his family broken and struggling. The house that once felt warm became heavy with worry. Bills piled up. Food became uncertain. School no longer mattered the way it once did. For Marcus, survival replaced dreams. Michael, supported by his family and coaches, continued pushing forward. College opened new doors. Then came the NBA. Fame followed. The world watched Michael Jordan rise. Marcus, however, slowly slipped through the cracks. One wrong decision led to another. An injury shattered his basketball future. Without guidance or support, hope began to fade. Jobs came and went. Relationships fell apart. Each failure pushed him further away from the boy who once dreamed of greatness. Years passed, and the distance between their lives grew wider. Now, standing on the sidewalk, Marcus couldn't bring himself to look Michael in the eye. His shoulders slumped as shame filled his voice. "I never wanted you to see me like this," he said quietly. Michael felt a tight knot in his chest. He reached out, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You're still my brother," Michael said, without hesitation. Around them, people began to notice. Phones were raised. Whispers spread. But Michael wasn't thinking about cameras, fame, or headlines. He was thinking about one thing only. How did his best friend end up here, and how could he help him stand again? Michael didn't call the media. He didn't post anything online. And he certainly didn't turn the moment into a public show. Instead, he chose silence and compassion. Michael invited Marcus to dinner that evening. Not to a luxury restaurant filled with cameras and attention, but to a small, quiet place where no one would recognize them. The kind of place where conversations matter more than appearances. Marcus sat across the table, holding his fork carefully. He ate slowly, almost nervously, as if the food might vanish if he wasn't careful. Every bite reminded him of how long it had been since he last felt secure. Michael noticed, but said nothing. That night, Michael didn't try to fix everything with advice. He didn't lecture Marcus about choices or mistakes. He simply listened. He listened to the story of years filled with struggle, disappointment, and loneliness. Marcus spoke about sleeping on cold streets, being ignored by strangers, and slowly losing belief in himself. "I stopped hoping," Marcus admitted quietly. "After a while, it feels like the world forgets you exist." Michael's eyes filled with emotion, but he stayed calm. He understood that sometimes the greatest gift isn't money, it's being heard. When the evening ended, they stood outside in the soft night air. Before they parted, Michael placed a firm, reassuring hand on Marcus's shoulder. His voice was gentle, yet full of certainty. The next morning began like any other for Marcus, cold, uncertain, and quiet. He sat outside the shelter, lost in thought, when the sound of an engine pulled him back to reality. A sleek black SUV slowly stopped in front of the building. It looked completely out of place. A sharply dressed driver stepped out and walked toward him. "Mr. Brown?" the man asked politely. "Yes," Marcus replied, confused. "Mr. Jordan is waiting for you." Marcus's heart began to race. Fear and disbelief mixed together as he stepped into the vehicle. He had no idea where they were going, or why. When the SUV stopped, Marcus could hardly believe his eyes. He stood frozen, overwhelmed by what was in front of him. Michael had arranged everything, quietly and carefully, without telling a single reporter. First came a full medical checkup, something Marcus hadn't had in years. Then clean clothes, grooming, and a fresh haircut. For the first time in a long while, Marcus barely recognized the man staring back at him in the mirror. But the surprises didn't stop there. Michael had secured a clean, fully paid apartment, safe, warm, and his. Counseling followed, along with job training to help Marcus rebuild his confidence and skills. Every detail had been thought through. Then came the biggest shock of all. Michael sat beside Marcus and explained that he had arranged a position for him in one of his community basketball programs, working with troubled youth, guiding kids who were standing at the same crossroads Marcus once faced. The weight of it all finally hit him. Marcus broke down in tears. "Why are you doing all this for me?" he asked through his sobs. Michael smiled, calm and sincere. "Because someone once believed in me when I had nothing," he said. "And because life knocked you down, but it doesn't get to keep you there." In that moment, Marcus understood something powerful. This wasn't pity. This wasn't charity. This was a second chance at life, and he wasn't going to waste it. Months passed, and the change in Marcus was undeniable. He stood tall again, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. His health had improved. His confidence had returned. And most importantly, his life once again had purpose. Marcus was no longer just surviving day to day. He was giving back. Through Michael Jordan's community basketball program, Marcus began working with young kids who were struggling. Kids who felt lost, unheard, and forgotten, just like he once had. Every time Marcus spoke, the kids listened, because they could see the truth in his story. Slowly, word began to spread. When a reporter finally asked Michael Jordan about the moment that reunited him with his childhood friend, Michael's response was simple, but powerful. His words quickly went viral across the world. "Fame doesn't define greatness. How you treat people does." Soon after, Michael and Marcus began visiting youth centers together. Standing side by side, they shared their story, not as a tale of success and failure, but as a reminder that life can change in a single moment. They told the kids that mistakes don't end your journey, and that no one is beyond hope. The man who once stood silently at a traffic light, holding a cardboard sign and asking for food, now stood on stages, holding a microphone and sharing hope. His past no longer defined him, his choices did. And the biggest shock of all? Michael Jordan didn't just change Marcus's life. Marcus reminded Michael of something priceless: where he came from, the streets that shaped him, and the truth that kindness matters more than trophies, rings, or fame ever will. Closing line for YouTube. Sometimes, the greatest victories don't happen on the court. They happen when you lift someone up that the world chose to forget. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because one act of kindness can truly change a life forever. Red Heart #.